out there, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Please Advise, which I hope is becoming one of your favorite advice channels. Today, I have with me performing artist and educator, Mr. Concert Blacc himself.
Thanks.
No, thank you.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much. When I started out this season, like, you know, I've been saying for the last several episodes, I wanted to definitely highlight a lot of St. Louis local talent. Not even, you know what I'm saying, specifically people that are in the, I guess, entertainment industry, not so much singers, not so much rappers, but I wanted to highlight pretty much every type of talent. And what initially drew me to you was the fact that you had become like a orchestra
director at Rittner High School, which is actually not far from here.
It's definitely not far from here. But what stood out to me, for one, orchestra director, that takes, I would imagine, a lot of years of study, a lot of years of practice, a lot of years of discipline, and for two, that you are a young black man. Again, I have only known one other person that has played a violin, you know, to that level. And it's always been fascinating to me, people who know how to play music, write music, sing, dance to music, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And I, like I said, I didn't want to be specific to artists or people, you know, trying to be aspiring artists. I want to make sure I shine the light on everybody. And that's exactly what drew me to you. Thank you so very much for coming on today.
Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you for doing this, because I mean, I think it's something that, you know, St. Louis, the community, the artist community especially, like, we don't really get much recognition unless you like a big name. You really got to put yourself out there. So like, granted, I haven't done too much at this point, because I'm just now, you know, getting started with my own compositions, my own music. And so, you know, having an opportunity to be on a show like this definitely helps me out. So I appreciate it.
No, listen, thank you so very much. Without a person sitting across from me, I don't know if I could do this. So, as much as you thanking me, please believe me, the thanks is much more on this side. Thank you so very much. So, I guess we'll just go ahead and jump right into it. Before we get into, you know, your professional career, I want to start, I guess, back at the beginning. Did you grow up here in St. Louis?
I did. I grew up in Blackjack, Missouri, or Florissant, up in North County. And so, yeah, I've lived here all my life for the most part. Graduated from Hazelwood Central. I did leave for college. Went to Truman State University in Kirksville, Missouri.
I mean, still, you was in Missouri.
I was in Missouri still, so I've been in Missouri pretty much all my life.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I started playing violin in 4th grade in Hazelwood. We had a string program. And yeah, when I was 10 years old, I became old enough and therefore eligible to play a stringed instrument, like so many of my students that I work with today. And I, you know, I went home and I was like, "Mama, I want to play the violin." She was like, "Okay, let's entertain this. Well, we'll rent him an instrument for about a year and a half." And then
went from the school or?
Well, I rented at both, actually. I went to Dale's Music when that was a thing. Got a violin from their shop, and then for Christmas, I ended up getting one when I was in 5th grade, about a year later. But I had also rented an instrument from the school for a certain period while I was still waiting. My parents were waiting to be convinced that it was something I was going to stick with. So yeah.
What drew you to the violin?
I don't know.
I mean, you can even remember that.
I remember sitting, like, there was an assembly, and like they show you all the instruments that you can play, and like the teachers were like really good, and like I remember her name, of course, Miss Deborah Hefferkamp, very well known music educator in the St. Louis area. She was my first teacher, and yeah, it was her and the band teacher in the area, and they both, you know, presented us with instruments and options that were open up to us. The clarinet was one I considered for a while, but for whatever reason, she came out with that violin, and I was like, okay, I like that sound that she's making right there. How do I do that? And so I really didn't think my mom was gonna like agree to it, but.
Because again, I only knew one other person that played the violin, and that was after I was already grown. So coming up through school, like I said, when we did our music instruments, it was normally the brass instruments or the drums. It was one or the other. Nobody played a string instrument. Nobody.
Yeah, but yeah, I was that kid. Of course, everywhere I went, I was carrying a little case with me. And like, that was that. And so I played all through middle school, did Alton Youth Symphony, I did a community orchestra at Flow Valley for a little bit while I was in high school.
Okay.
And I was getting private lessons. Eventually, when my mom saw me sticking with it, she had me work with Miss Havercamp, who was my first teacher, for private instruction. And like we met at a church right off of 367. Near, right across the street from East, actually. And yeah, that's where I had my lessons, and she taught me a lot of things all the way up through my junior year of high school. And so I had decided at that point that I was gonna go on and study music and continue studying orchestra and violin technique wherever I ended up going. I hadn't necessarily decided where I was gonna go, but I knew that I wanted to do something music related. So I continued my studies at Truman State. Graduated in 2010 from Hazelwood Central.
Okay.
Went on to Truman State University, and it was a very intense program. It was funny because
the music program.
The music program at Truman was it was definitely the foundation of so much that I learned, or so much that I'm able to do today and now. So like I went through high school like first chair. Like I got it.
Okay, so
the best musician.
Some of these terms you're gonna have to, break down for me. So when you say first chair,
I was the concert master, or the first person sitting in the violin section. So I got to sit all the way in the front, and I would kind of like lead my section.
Okay.
Kind of through the repertoire that we were learning for whatever concerts. And so as concert master, I'm making sure that people have bowings, people are playing parts in tune. We have sectionals, and we break out into groups. First violin, second violin, cello, and viola. All of the instruments, they break out into the groups, and so I would lead the first violins, of course, through whatever they wanted us to work on. So
I'm looking like this because like it sounds like a lot of responsibility for high school.
I guess, but like honestly, for me, because I was taking private lessons.
Oh, okay. So you were kind of beyond them.
I was kind of a little bit further than some of the people that were in the class because their parents were making them do it, or were in the class because they needed that art credit for whatever reason.
Oh, okay.
And so I did orchestra all 4 years of high school.
Really?
Yes.
So what is orchestra different from just being in a regular band? Well, I mean, obviously, because the band marches and all that type of stuff.
Right, yeah. And so like they're different instruments. Sometimes we would combine with the band and like do a full orchestra thing. We did several trips like that while I was in high school. We went to Cleveland. I went to Atlanta 1 year, and like we would do like festivals, and it would be a full orchestra experience. I knew a lot of my friends that were in the band, and it was cool to be able to take trips like that. One of whom, Nando, who I featured with, he's a St. Louis musician as well. So like we go all the way back to high school.
Right.
Yes. So yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna get into that part just a little bit later.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about a little bit more, I guess, about the high school years. I consider high school years as probably the most important years of your life until you get into your 30s and you start really, settling down on what you want to do, for the rest of your life. Because the high school years, to me, they really kind of form the person that you will be, what you will become, a lot of the traits and stuff that you'll pick up and keep for the rest of your life. So during high school, you playing the violin, you lead chair, is that correct? Lead chair for the violins.
First chair.
So what other stuff were you into, if anything else?
I did a lot of things in high school. So I find when I was a senior, I got to finally join the choir because I was I was taking a bunch of throwout classes. Like I needed to be at school, and so like I actually had time in my schedule to actually take choir. We had a new choir teacher that year. She made me tenor section leader, and so granted that was my first year doing that, and so I also sang. Granted, I don't sing as much as these days, but yeah, I have vocal experience. Like in high school, we did Voices of Harmony, which was an a cappella group. I was involved with that. The student workshop theater and the thespians, of course. I did theater. I did acting on stage for the plays and for the musicals. Played Radames in Aida when we put that show on. It was a fun musical. But so I was in the arts wing at all times. That's how I was prepping myself to go on to study music later on. So we would do, we would have string quartets, we would have for solo and ensemble, and we play for a judge.
Like at his house?
well, not like at for a festival. Like they would pick, like every year was someplace different. Like sometimes they would have it at Parkway. You go with your ensemble. You go to that school. You play in front of an adjudicator or a judge, and they give you a rating. And so it was called Solo Ensemble Festival. And like you do that, you get a rating, you get a certificate, and if you get a 1 in St. Louis, you get to go to state, which is like at Mizzou. And so stuff like that. I auditioned for All-State, but didn't necessarily get in, which because it was very competitive.
I would imagine so.
Yeah,
I would imagine
very,
so.
Very competitive. But like also there were just a lot of things that that foundation that you get. It only takes you so far at the high school level. Yeah, it only takes you so far. But I give props to Kimberly Jackson, my high school orchestra director, because I had her for 6 years, from middle school and high school.
Oh, okay. So did she transfer over, or did she?
She was a traveling teacher at the time, and so like,
I mean, not to ask all about her business, but
but yeah, she gave me a lot of like opportunities, made sure I was set for whatever I wanted to go and pursue once I left high school. So definitely a very big influence.
That's what's up. That's what's up. I tell you, I am always amazed at the stories people tell. You know what I mean? Because for me, I wasn't necessarily in that circle. You know what I mean? Like I was with the marching band a little bit because I marched in the parades with them with the flag line, and I was in drama club a little bit, so I kind of dibbed and dabbed in different clubs in high school, but I didn't really belong to, I guess, a certain group of people. You know what I mean? So when people tell stories of their high school experience, that it always amazes me. I had fun in high school. For sure. I really did. I mean, for all its faults and all the bad days that I may have had, but high school was always fun for me. It really, really was. It really, really was. Sure. Okay, so you graduate high school. You go off to Truman State University.
Yes.
Tell me about Truman State.
Yikes. So, again, foundation of everything that I know as a professional musician. But boy, was I taken out of my element growing up in North County, St. Louis, and then being dropped in the middle of, or I guess the northeastern corner of rural Missouri. Not much diversity. Not and granted, I would say I shouldn't say that there wasn't much diversity. Like, we had a multicultural affairs center. We had like a lot of things that you would expect, programs put on by like the student union that allowed. It was the most cultural spot in the place, obviously, because it was a university. But man, there was just I was thrust into a professional society where a lot of things, like the way I talk, they don't necessarily understand, and so I'm like, oh, okay. I guess I have to. I have to adjust. I'm in college now. Okay. And so but it was an experience. Like, granted, I made a lot of really good friends, lasting relationships. I did a lot of different things when I was there too. I started in show choir. Okay. Of course, I was in orchestra because I was a orchestra major. Okay. So I was doing.
So that's an actual major. When I ask these questions, I'm asking from a place of complete ignorance.
Sure. So I started as a performance major, learning violin technique. Okay. And so at the end of that, what should have happened, I would get a bachelor's of music, and if I chose to, I could go on to get a master's in performance on my specific instrument. Okay. Granted, after my first year, I was a little shook because I came from, being, top notch in high school, then going into the university, and it was like, oh, I'm at the back of the second violin.
What? You know what? I promise. That was exactly what I was saying. Like, did you see first chair when you got to Truman?
Because the gap in the talent was just so high.
So when you got there was a gap in talent, and I guess you was
between high school and the students that had studied there for several years, and so like I'm at the back of the second violins. I got a small music scholarship for auditioning, and like that was really cool. Dr. Sam McClure, who I think recently retired, he was my professor for all, I guess, at least 5 years of study in Kirksville, and he had a lot of experience with a lot of professional musicians. I remember someone told me he played with Ray Charles. Really? Because he's an older guy, a lot older guy. And like, he had done a concert and an orchestra with some big names back in the day. But now, of course, he was teaching as a professor at Truman State University. And so auditioned for the orchestra, got in, back to the second violins. But I was able to work my way up, to at least to the first violin section. I think the furthest I got was 5th chair on violin. And so like that's out of an orchestra made up of about, granted, band and orchestra combined, at least 60 to about 75 or 80 people, given whatever semester it is.
Yeah.
So like it's a large ensemble. Okay. And we do concerts regularly every semester. Of course, big classical pieces by Beethoven, Mendelssohn, Rachmaninoff.
So you probably know some of them. Just
yes.
Okay.
Yes, I was because I'm classically trained. That's the type of repertoire that I've been studying for majority of my music career. Okay. But I of course was raised listening to a lot of things. Of course, living in St. Louis, so. Right. Yes, I listened to Nelly. Yes, I listened to gospel. I was in church and listening to hip hop, of course, as well. Keeping up with stuff that was high school norm at the time. So you
graduated in 2010.
I graduated in 2010.
Who I was already a grown man. Okay, so 2010. I'm trying to think of like the music that was out in 2010. I think by the time 2010 came, I was already in my mode of music that kind of molded me. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I knew a lot of new artists that came out in 2010.
But the ones that I would say that I was listening to, like, are pretty standard, like pretty basic. So I mean, we got, of course, Usher, Neo.
But Usher not Child's. Usher is ours.
That is, I will give them that. But during that time, I was listening to Usher. Okay. Because like he had Confessions had come out by then. But he had a few other albums that had come out later. A lot of Neo. Okay. Jay Holiday.
Yeah, that's y'all's.
Rihanna, of course.
Yeah.
Beyonce. At whatever stage she was
at. Whatever stage.
So yeah. So like the norm, like the norms in terms of like hip hop, R&B, and pop.
So and this is the question I was gonna ask, because normally when you hear musicians talk about how they were trained, they always I always hear I was classically trained. Is there another discipline other than being classically trained?
I would say that a lot of musicians that are in St. Louis that have so much talent, they're not necessarily classically trained. They learn playing by ear. They learn just listening to the part and then playing it back, or coming up with their own parts, or they got it from church. A lot of church musicians in St. Louis, they don't always necessarily read music. They don't necessarily know how to write and notate a lot of the parts that are in there, or maybe they learned at one point, but they didn't need that part of it because the music that they played took a specific style or form that was just easy to follow, to where you didn't need short sheet music.
I get it.
So like like granted, most of the stuff that I play, I read sheet music for, because that's what I teach. That's what I'm required to do with my string quartet and whatever concerts that I put on for my students. That's the the way that we teach with that. But like, there's a level of improvisation, of course, that comes with learning to teach that way as well, and working with musicians who don't necessarily always read music.
Okay, so I'm so inquisitive, especially about this part.
Yeah.
So when you are so you went to college, you studied music, so obviously you know how to read, write, and all that type of stuff with music. Mm-hmm. So when you are working with somebody who doesn't necessarily know how to read music, are they matching notes with you? Like, how does that kind of work? And this is totally abstract.
Okay, so
I just want to know.
Usually for me, like for instance, if I had a gig with a regular musician that wanted me to, play some sustained notes over their parts, I can, figure out the key, of course, enough, figure out where the prevailing rhythms that they're playing, and just kind of jump in and do my own thing. So there's a level of improvisation that I also know how to do as well. Okay. But most of the stuff that I do is classically trained. But usually being classically trained means that you're kind of skilled in both areas. Not always. There are some exceptions, but like skilled enough in both areas to pick up on certain things and just take the lead or follow whatever the musician or the writer of the song is actually aiming for. So like, For instance, when I work with artists in St. Louis, I'll go to their session and I'll just play something and they'll be like, I want that. I need you to do that when you go to the session. Just do that on Saturday, and that's all we need. And so I was like, okay. And so, yeah, coming up with stuff on the fly is usually what I do when I'm working with artists in St. Louis, but there's also the classical component that I was, trained to be able to do. So.
That is so amazing to me. I promise. It really is. And I don't think the part that fascinates me most is how you speak about it. Like, because I can hear the passion behind it. You may not know what I mean, but I do, and it sounds like you enjoy it and you happy doing it. Like you smiling while you talking about it. Like even while you going back in memory lane, like that's amazing. Again, like I said before we even started, I don't know how to play no instrument. I don't know how to sing. I could barely dance a little bit. So everybody that is kind of inclined in those areas, it always fascinated me. I promise. I would have sold my soul to be able to sing. If I go to sleep tonight and the devil visit me in my dream, and he asks me,
what do you want?
I'm literally selling my soul. And if you need somebody else's soul. No. But seriously, I've always been amazed by that. I really have been. So I want to talk about what influenced you to go into, I guess, teaching.
Honestly, quite honestly, at a certain point after my first year undergrad at Truman State, I was so shook by my lack of time management, lack of organization, lack of a lot of things. I felt overwhelmed by that first semester, and I told myself, okay, I'm going to wait one more semester. I'm going to give it one more semester, but I may need to reevaluate what moves I want to make, because I still want to do music, but how can I get the most out of my music experience with some level of job security, and also understanding now that there's always going to be someone better than you. And so I had to make that decision. I was like, okay, well, at least if I go into education, I can still do a lot of my own pursuits with music on the side where I can find time. And so at a certain point, I understood what was required to be a performance major, the level of practice, the hours of practice, and I wasn't sure if I had what it took. I questioned that for sure during my undergrad.
Really?
And so at a certain point, I was like, okay, I'm going to go over to education, and so I switched over. But like, I definitely don't regret it, of course. Like, that's what I want to do. And I've even considered going back to school for a performance degree, knowing what I know now, feeling a little bit more prepared for that. But like for a period, I was like, okay, this is what it takes to be a professional musician. Do I really have that? Can I be honest with myself? And some people might think that you're crazy. You're crazy talented, and you could have figured it out, and you have figured it out at this point. So like, I'm like, But at the end of the day, I'm 100% satisfied with the music degree that I've gotten, the education degree that I have, and of course the certificate that comes with it, and allows me to share the joy, the love of what being a part of a string ensemble or just doing music in general. Like what that is, because that's something that is therapeutic for our students. That's something that they definitely need, especially at a time like this. So.
Correct. I want to pivot back to something that you just said. When you said realizing there is always going to be somebody better than you. Is it always going to be somebody better than you?
When it comes to this, to string playing? Yes, I can tell you who those people are. But I'm not one of them. I'm a very low-hanging fruit. Yes, because string technique, there are a lot of string.
Again, I before we started, I was taking some sound cuts, and when I tell you he picked up that violin, and I literally was amazed because at how quickly I don't know what note he was on or nothing like that. He could have just been playing garbage, but to me, it sounded like you got it. So when you say, I understand that will always be somebody better because they've been practicing longer. They, all these type of factors. All these types of factors go into it.
For sure.
But low hanging fruit though, my nigga.
Yeah.
On what tree though? On what tree?
On what tree?
On what tree?
On the tree of professional string technique and pedagogy, I am.
But you have been training.
I have been. I've done good work. I've done music festivals. I've done concerts. I play in a string quartet in St. Louis. We do weddings. We do gigs. We do concerts. We actually had a concert not too long ago. And yeah, like I put myself out there regularly. I pursue what I want to do. Like it's more of a lifestyle than just a profession for me. And so like there's no way I could actually like ever really give that up. But I know that again, there will just always be someone better. And that's not the point. That's not necessarily the point. It's not why I like do this. But like I just have a love for it.
But I think I fell back on it to make this point. I think a lot of us, when we start doing stuff, whether it be, that or entertaining or even doing this, at some point I do have to accept that, you know what, it is going to be somebody better than me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I do my research, I watch other people do interviews and stuff like that,
right.
And I'll be like, oh, they so good, or, so how do they, grab attention or, that type of stuff, which I understand. I am fairly new to it, so I'm working, but I'm just like, oh my God, they so much better than me. You know what I mean? So, and I think that is an important lesson to learn. It really is. There can only be one best.
Yeah. There can only be one.
And it's and like you say, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing to discredit yourself about.
Right.
For me, it's motivation.
For sure, right.
It really is. It really is.
And a lot of times I feel like eventually at a certain point it did fuel me, because like when I was in high school, I was at the top. That was kind of the issue. Like there were other really good musicians in that orchestra, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But like, again, the standard of where I was versus where everybody else was, I wasn't really pushing myself as hard as I could have. Okay. And it wasn't until I was forced to do that when I got to the university that, I got a step slightly further than what I had been training to do at that point. So it's I see what you mean. I do. No.
I had a totally different question.
Uh-huh.
So you get to Truman. So how did? Okay. So because in my mind, I immediately revert back to the movie Drumline. How when they start and they they do their little piece and it's like yes or no.
Yeah.
I know it's probably not that dramatic, or maybe it is. But how? You said you eventually, you started second string violins. So what's the difference? Like,
okay, so there are several sections within the orchestra, full symphonic orchestra. That's leaving out the band. Okay. There's the first violin sections. They mostly have the main melodies and the soprano line or the high parts of the melody, the symphony, the piece that you're working on. Okay. Then you have the second violins that kind of use a lot of harmonies. They play the same notes, of course. They're tuned the same as the first violins. They're all the same instrument, but sometimes they'll have more rhythmic support under the melody that the first violins are playing. They'll have different harmonies to go along with that. Then you have the viola section. I also play viola. I started viola.
Viola is the big one?
It's bigger than the violin, but it's not big. Like it's not. I think you're thinking of the cello. I might assume that you're thinking of the cello, but
I'm thinking of the instrument. Have you ever seen the movie August Rush? Or
yes, that was a cello.
That was a cello. So that's not what you play.
I can play a cello because I have to teach it, of course. Okay. But like, it's not an instrument that it's not an instrument that I specialized in, or that I would, play in a concert. Okay. So, again, I started violin when I was 10. I picked up viola when I think I finished undergrad at that point. But my professor, he said, if you're going to go into education, you need to be fluent on at least 2 of the 4 string instruments. And so that's violin, viola, cello, and bass. So the big double bass, of course. Okay. That's part of the orchestra too. And then the cello, August Rush, sits between the legs and And so that's I picked up the viola. I think it was the summer after I finished undergrad. He gave me his viola and let me borrow it, and he was like, take the summer and work on this piece. He just gave me a bunch of sheet music, and in the fall we'll have you do a semester of graduate studies with the orchestra, which will play viola. Okay. And I had never played viola at that point, and so never. No, I was I guess I was 22, probably 22 years old when I picked up the viola, and I'm 30 now. And so Yeah, I borrowed that instrument for a summer, came back, and then he was giving me lessons on the viola weekly. And I think he was a little bit surprised by how well that I took to the viola, because he's done this with several of his students. And a lot of them, like, they'll do their semester of viola, but they'll
let it fall to the wayside.
They'll let it fall to the wayside. Not all of them, but like, of course, most of them, they just prefer violin because it's what they've been doing. But I really like the viola, and I didn't expect to like it as much as I do. It's a different monster. It's held like a violin. It's slightly bigger, but it has different strings, and it reads a very specific clef. Really? So the tuning on this is from high to low, E, A, D, and G. So those are the strings, the letter names associated with the strings.
It's good, yeah, because they're only 4 strings.
They're only 4 strings, exactly. Okay. And so a viola
Look at me learning.
Okay. And so a viola has the same strings almost, except for instead of an E string, a high E string, it has a low C string. And so essentially, viola is held like a violin, but it has the same strings as a cello.
Okay. And the cello,
the cello's been okay. And so, but also, again, it doesn't even read the same bass. The clef is a cello. Cello reads bass clef.
That's what I always wanted to know.
Right.
So if I have a piece of sheet music, and when music, okay, so let me make sure I phrase this correctly. When you read music, is it like a universal, I guess, language? Like for instance, if I say, to Google, print me, Beethoven's Fifth, or whatever, and it prints me out music. Can I use that same music that it printed me out to play the piano, to play the violin, to play the cello? Like, does it transfer? That's what I want to know.
In some instances, granted, of course, Beethoven's Fifth has multiple parts. I know what you're saying. But like,
I want to sound like I knew some.
Technically, yes, you can have a piece transcribed in a different clef. For a different instrument, or instrument that
also it would have to be a different piece.
No, it'd be the same piece. You just have to like write it differently on the sheet music. So like,
so if I print it out in piano, I can't use that exact piece to play.
You can technically, but like you'd have to only read one line of that piece, because pianos, of course, has a lot of chords, a lot of music. But like you can take a part of that melody that the piano plays and play it on a violin or play it on a cello. You can do that for sure.
Okay.
And so like it's like a language. So like I speak treble clef because I play violin. I speak alto clef because I play viola, and I speak bass clef because I play a cello or bass.
Play cello. Okay.
And so like they're almost the lines and spaces on the staff. They mean different things. They mean different things in different clefs. So that's with the foundation of what notation is. Like there are different ranges for different instruments in different octaves and in different registers. So that's how my instrument kind of functions.
I have learned. Listen, I feel like I've learned so much just that fast. Like it truly fascinates me. A lot of those terms you were using, I probably don't know, but I can, from context clues, figure out what you meant by them. But that's amazing.
Thank you.
To me, it's amazing, and to be able to, I have always understood. Well, I don't know where I heard this said, but I heard from somebody that when you truly understand something, you can explain it in the simplest terms. And for you to just explain it to me and me to be able to follow along, it truly shows an in-depth understanding.
I try
of what you do. Listen, I'm amazed. Okay, so I want to move forward in time a little bit.
Okay.
So we go to Truman State. We graduate with our undergrad from Truman State. Okay, so my question, I guess, is when do you become Concert Blacc?
That's actually quite recent. So I finished my undergrad in 2014. Okay. I stayed in Kirksville for another year and a half. And by about 2015, end of 2015, I moved back to St. Louis, and I had to do a teaching internship at multiple schools. I actually taught in Hazelwood, middle schools, several middle schools.
Was your teacher still there?
Yes. Yes. She actually worked with her for my internship, and she was one of my mentors. So that was kind of cool. So I did my internship in Hazelwood. Then I actually got a job in Hazelwood, and then I only stayed there for a year. It was a rough first year, but like I got through it, and I enjoyed it. I met some lasting relationships with teachers and with students. But at the end of that year, I decided to move switch over to part-time so that I could try and perform a little bit more. And again, the stage name had not necessarily been established, but I wanted to like reserve time to like do more weddings, do more gigs, maybe write my own thing. But again, I'm still early in my teaching tenure, so like I'm still trying to figure things out as I go. Because teaching is not just teaching; it's emails, it's staff meetings, I have lesson planning, and so
I've never been a teacher. But I have worked for a company that staffs teachers.
Right.
So I understand that it, again, it's not just teaching. It's a lot on the back end. You know what I mean? That's another story for another day. I have a profound respect for educators. I really do. Because not only do you have to balance being a role model for the children and educating them and molding them into, you know, productive members of society, you still have those other background duties that, you know, have absolutely nothing to do with the children.
Right.
You know, so, but anyway, that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole conversation. But yeah, it came with its challenges, especially with music. You have a broken instrument, you got to figure it out. You need the student that doesn't have an instrument. You need to make sure the bows all work. And make sure you have enough rosin, enough of the materials that are required to teach the class, like any class. But I'm figuring it out as I go. I taught there for 2 years at Steger 6th Grade Center. It was a middle school or intermediate school. I taught orchestra part-time. And in the meantime, I actually had formed a string quartet made up of some of the other Truman students that I had met who were also in the St. Louis area. We go by Ophelia String Quartet. And yeah, we've done several performances. We've hosted our own concerts, and again, like we do weddings. So like we'll bridal.
So like the march, I guess.
The wedding march or canon in D. A lot of the typical things that you would hear at a wedding. We play those. We play those pieces for them, or whatever pieces they really request. Sometimes we'll do arrangements. Sometimes we'll just arrange parts for whatever piece the bride is looking for. So. Yeah. So
do y'all do like the reception? Like, do y'all stay on?
Sometimes, yes. If they want us for like a cocktail hour or a reception afterwards, we'll stay on for that. Granted, it'll cost extra, but most of the time, right? Yeah. But most of the time, they just want us for the ceremony, and you know the prelude or the processional from before the bride walks down the aisle, and you know, some music once they're done or once the ceremony is actually finished. So yeah.
So if you are doing a cocktail hour, so if somebody come up and make a request, like how do y'all handle those?
We're not that type of ensemble, but we do have we have binders that like have a lot of sheet music. So if we have the piece, and they
I mean, like say if I come up there and I say I want to hear, you know, Bruno Mars, can y'all, you know.
That'd be a reach, but we might be able to whip something up. We might be able to figure those parts. Like if it's a song that we all know. Like
so if I come up and I'm like, I want, you know, Beyonce Halo, can y'all whip that up?
Our first violinist would take the main melody, and we would probably play some supporting harmonies. Supporting rhythms.
So it'd be Halo-ish.
But like. We could make that work, assuming that it's a piece that all of us actually know. And so
what if I come and say I want to hear the Game of Thrones intro? Because I know y'all know that.
We know it. We don't necessarily have the parts for it, but we could figure.
It'll be Game of Thrones-ish.
It'll be Game of Thrones-ish.
Yeah.
And so we don't normally get requests. Like normally, like that we have a contract.
Yeah, I ain't never been nowhere, so I don't know.
we give the bride or the wedding planner a contract. They fill it out with the request from a repertoire list of pieces that they want played for their ceremony. But like it's not necessarily like. Most of the time, nobody comes up and asks for or requests for a specific piece.
Well, I guess if you have a quartet at your wedding, you know, it's decor. And you know. But again, I ain't been nowhere, so I'm used to being a DJ, you know, with a laptop, and I go up there and say, "Hey, bruh," you know what I'm saying? So, but no, that again, Amazing. I really am amazed. Like I don't want you to feel like I'm, just gaslighting or nothing like that. Like I am literally in awe.
But to actually answer your question about Concert Blacc, so like I honestly was 2019 before the pandemic even started. Like this 2019 was a rough year.
Was it a 2019?
Yes.
I just feel like
it was bad. So like I was teaching, and actually it was a really busy day that day. But like I found out that my older brother had passed away in a car crash, and he lives in Dallas. And so the months after that, like I was shook. I was just shook. Like I wasn't able to come to school regularly. I was like going through the grief. I was feeling heavy all the time. And so like that was a lot for me because I had never really lost anyone that close to me in like 20. I was 28 at the time. And had been lucky enough to not really lose anyone that way in that amount of time. And so like it took me a while to work through it, talk through it. We had a beautiful ceremony for him, of course. And like the rest of the family moved back up to St. Louis. My nieces and my goddaughter, which is one of my nieces, they stay in St. Louis. I go see them regularly, and I like try to be there for them where I can, despite the fact that of course he is no longer here. But I knew it was almost therapeutic for me, so like I needed to come up with something. At the time, I had just reconnected with Nando, and we shot the video for his one of his singles called "Outside." A lot of people in St. Louis have become popular.
It is.
And so like he wanted me for that session. We shot the video, and it turned out really great. At that point, after that, we were like doing shows. We were doing like I was going to school and then coming home and like doing shows, even though like I'm still reeling from like this loss. But like I knew I wanted something about me knew that performing and playing, like that's what I was supposed to be doing. That's what my brother would have expected of me, in addition to of course being there with the family and working through that. So like this is still 2019 at this point, because we shot the video in June of that summer, and then we went to Shaw University. We opened for Trina. Yes. So like that was kind of cool. And yeah, we were doing several other things around the city of St. Louis. We did Slumfest 2020, and like Outside had gotten two awards for that single, just for that single. And so it was crazy because that was literally the last time that like things were normal before the pandemic started. This is February 2020. And so like we did that show. We got the awards. I played with Nando on stage. We were doing shows at Pops. We were doing shows at there was a Bootleg at the time, which of course is now closed, at the time of Cowboy. And yeah, that kind of is where things like kind of landed with that. And so he was planning a huge show back in 2020. Originally it was supposed to be at the Old Rock House. It was supposed to be at the Old Rock House downtown. And so we were trying to get ready for the show. This is of course before the pandemic started. And he said, yo, if you want to open for me for this show, I got a slot for you. And he kept telling me, yo, Outside is doing really well, but a lot of things that I'm hearing from people, they're not asking about me. They're asking about you. They're like,
so
who's the violinist? Who's the violinist?
I obviously have heard the song.
And
I did not know that. Again, a little bit of a backstory before we even came on film. When I invited you on, I told you I invited you on because of the educational part of what you do. And then when you tell me that you recorded with Nando, and then you talk about the Outside, the single that you did the violin on, like I've had other guests that have been correlated other ways, but I am the worst at connecting dots sometimes. Like seriously, I am the worst at connecting dots. So when you just said that, I just thought about it is a violin part on there, and it's you. Like listen, St. Louis is small, but it is amazing the talent that is really around here. I did wonder who played the violin on it, but I thought it was I don't know how these things work. I don't
Yeah.
know how they find people or, you know, where they come from, but I didn't know it was you. When I invited you on today, I didn't even know. I'm gonna keep it 100. I like for real. I didn't even know that you was Concert Blacc. When we talked, I literally didn't know. I feel like I stalked you socially, and I feel like I should have known, but I don't know. I missed it somehow. But I literally called you on to talk about education and, you know, playing instruments and all that type of stuff. I was truly fascinated by that. So to learn all of this other stuff, listen, I'll tell y'all, when I have people come here, I am always amazed at the amount of hard work and like hustle that y'all be having here in St. Louis. Listen, I've said it once and I will continue to say it. It is so much talent here in St. Louis. So much, it's like bubbling over. But anyway, okay, so
I feel that, and I appreciate that. Like,
no,
it's been a long road to actually get to this point, but like, yeah, again, the family issues. Yeah, it became so therapeutic to work towards that, to put energy towards that, and of course, he's wanting me to, or he's asking me if I want to take this slot to open for a show, and I'm like, okay, I need to probably take advantage of this. I need to actually do something. But the thing is, there are people are asking about me, but like all I've done at this point is this single with you. I haven't really taken time to write my own music, to get my thoughts down on paper. And like, I've never really written anything. I never really thought people would be actually interested in like...
They are.
String playing.
They are.
And so like, I was like, okay, so how do I engage an audience? Because I'm classically trained and I don't really do, you know, the stuff that an audience in St. Louis is really looking for, unless they're in Power Symphony Hall. We do like crunk, trap, ratchet. That's what it's all about. And so I never saw myself in that scene really, until this point. And so I was like, okay, well, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make an EP, put some tracks together, and figure it out. So like for Christmas in 2019, I bought myself a microphone, and in January I just started, you know, planning as if I was going to open for him for the show that was supposed to schedule to be in May of 2020. Okay. It of course had to be pushed back, obviously, because the pandemic had started. Yeah. But I still released my EP on August 7th of 2020, and I had those 5 tracks ready to share. So like I kind of spent a lot of time after school just figuring out the sound, coming up with random parts. I do a little bit of basic keyboarding skills, so I had the chords, I knew where I wanted to take things. I added layered string parts in the middle of it, and it's all on like a microphone that I bought. Like I'm getting a filter, I'm getting a interface, I'm using it with my laptop and plugging it in and just doing all this stuff out of my room in my apartment. And so I had done sessions with Nando at Shock City, and I met with the sound engineer. I reached out to him outside of Nando and said, hey, this is what I have, this is what I'm looking for, this is what needs to happen. I'm doing this show this day, so what are your thoughts on what I have here? And he literally told me, this is a lot. You did all this by yourself. And so
it's amazing.
It was kind of it was cool because like I kind of like really just put those tracks together. Yeah. Like, because it's just what kind of came out. Yeah. But like it wasn't really a long period of time. I want to say like I had started putting this together over the course of like maybe a month and a half to 2 months, and I had 5 solid drafts of tracks that he enjoyed, and he basically said, listen, you don't need me because you don't want to have to pay for what this is gonna take, because you have a lot here. So what you need to do is find someone who's interested in your sound and will do the work for either cheap or free, because this is really good. Right. And he really liked what I had come up with, and so I reached back into my Facebook friends and was like, okay, who do I know? Who have I worked with before? Right. Got with my friend who goes by Electric David. He's part of a band called Drangus, and he's a sound engineer. He's a really good sound engineer. I worked with him on another project for the Holy Posers, which is a folk band made up of another friend from Truman State. Okay. And we worked together on that project, so I reached out to him and said, hey, let's get coffee. This is what I have. What needs to happen? This is what I'm looking for. Like, all I have here is keys, piano, and like a simple beat that I kind of came up with myself. Like, right. how do we make this sound more engaging? And so he was like, okay, I really like this. It was really good. I want to work with you, and let's do this. So like, it was like, we charged like maybe $20 an hour, which was very cheap at the time.
I agree.
And
anytime.
But he believed in what I was doing. He believed in what I was doing, and he saw the time frame that I had, what I was working with, and he knew that he could pull it together. So we were meeting like, I want to say weekly. This is again the winter of 2020. Beginning of 2020, like January 2020, and like we're meeting on and off from then till March. But we don't know when the pandemic even started. We didn't know how long it was gonna last.
Nobody.
We were like, okay, so the show is in May.
So I guess the latest July.
Maybe we'll be able to have the show. Maybe we'll have to do this concert. But no, we pushed it back to August.
Okay, because y'all just knew it was gonna be done by then.
We just knew it was gonna be done by August. Right. No, we could not have more than 50 people. And granted, that was once even like the summer started. COVID wasn't as big of a deal, and like people kind of relaxed. But then cases started coming up out of nowhere, and then they had to go back to the lockdown, and you need to have a mask mandate, and there were no crowds bigger than 50 people.
Correct.
So it got pushed back again, and it was just canceled, I think, at that point. Granted, it was going to be postponed, but like it wasn't at the old Rock House at that point. And so the show got pushed back to May of 2021. And I had released that part. And honestly, the thing was, once the pandemic had started, I was so shook by, what I was trying to do with music and how much I had not necessarily fallen away from, but the toll that grief took on me to be able to do my job as an educator. I knew I needed to take some time off. So the 2020 to the 2021 school year, I decided not to teach. I didn't renew my contract, and I had to leave the district. So it was a tough decision, but I knew that given everything that I was doing, or what I was trying to do for myself, and how my students were being affected by my lack of presence. And granted, I was there, but like my head,
virtually,
I was in person. Well, granted, at the very end of the year it was virtual, but like I was there with my students, and I was like showing up and trying to like make it an experience for them. But like my head was on grief, my head was on other things, my head was on trying to make sure my family was okay, and just processing that grief for myself. And so I told myself, I don't want to do a disservice to my students, so let me do what's best for me and them, and take at least some time off. I did not know when I was going to come back to teaching, but once the pandemic kind of subsided, once the vaccine came out, I was still a substitute. I worked as a substitute so I could make my own schedule, and like I helped a teacher that actually was on maternity leave, and covered for her classes in Webster Groves, which was nice because I actually got to work with some of my old students, but like I wasn't their teacher, and it was only for a couple of months. But I needed to take a step away from full-time teaching because life had affected me so deeply. The release happened on time in 2020. It got a good response from a lot of people. Like, granted, we featured the article that Kevin Johnson wrote in the Post-Dispatch, and it was a very good success. Fast forward to 2021, we did the show with Nando. I was one of his openers.
So y'all did do the show?
We did the show in 2021, but it had been postponed twice.
Right. All
throughout 2020. It was a very cool experience. Like, I hadn't really done it had always been classical, it had always been with an orchestra, or it had always been for someone else's song or someone else's music, but like I actually got to perform something that I created and share with an audience, and that was a really cool experience. And then I even did a show, a part of a lineup with the old Rock House. We did a Juneteenth performance.
Oh, that's nice to them.
Yeah, and it was really cool. I got to play with the band. They learned my music pretty quickly, and like professionals. And like I got to play a few of my tracks for them on Juneteenth, and so that was a really fun experience as well. again, Rittner listed a position open on teacher at website. I honestly had not planned on going back to teaching, and I was just driving for Lyft. I was driving for Lyft and writing music, doing a few shows here and there, and that was about it.
Okay.
But like, I'm driving for Lyft. I got rear-ended, so my car was out of commission, and I could not drive and make money. So I was like, okay,
what am I going to do?
I guess I have to look to see what positions are open. It was fun. It's funny how the universe works, because like I never would have looked for a teaching position had I not been. Oh no,
good.
Had I not been in that accident, had I not been rear-ended, I never would even look for a position.
Because you still would have been doing Lyft.
I still would have been doing Lyft, and so and of course at this point this car accident happened in July of this year, like just a couple months ago.
The Dub 1.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and so I'm like trying to figure out what I'm gonna do. I'm like, okay, I guess I'll look to see what positions are open because
you gotta work.
I gotta work somehow. And Rittner High School had a position open, and I was like, how does Rittner have a position open in July? But the teacher had just resigned their position pretty late in the summer. Most of the time. Most districts know who's going to be taking those positions.
I work for a company who, did this. So
exactly.
I did just work for them in the Dub 1. Right. So I know how, how it works. It's not about me, but I know how,
Yes, exactly. And so, I applied for the position. They hit me back the same day, wanted to schedule an interview.
Damn right.
The same day.
Real quick.
Wanted an interview that Friday. I interviewed with the principal, a few of the music teachers in the district, and it was virtual, of course, but by the next week, they make me play. I have had to do that once.
I mean, not make you play, but did they?
No, they just asked me about my previous teaching. So they just took your word? Well, they took my previous experience. Like, I had to, of course, submit a resume with, like, all the districts that I worked with, recommendation letters that I just have saved from teachers, professionals that I worked with. So, like, I have everything that I need.
It ain't like just, John Doe, I want to teach.
No.
Okay.
Of course, it's very extensive. Fingerprints, background check.
I mean, I know that part, but I'm talking about as far as proven, and not even so much proven, but demonstrating ability. They didn't, none of that?
No. But honestly, one of the teachers that interviewed me was an orchestra teacher. She had worked with me before. So she already knew me. And so she was probably the one that said, that's the one. We don't need to interview. I mean, they probably did interview at least a couple other people. But by that next week, they had decided we want you on. So,
really?
I've been teaching at Rittner High School. This is my first time teaching high school. But since the 2021-2022 school year.
So how is high school different from the other grades that you've taught? And I'm emphasizing a lot on this part because again, aside from the music educators, they have my utmost respect, especially since recently I got kind of in-depth knowledge of the type of things that they go through, yada yada, blase skip. But
so of course the age difference and the cognitive ability, that's the main difference, I guess, with teaching high school. You're having to plan extensive lessons with an age group of students that you're really trying to prepare for whatever they want to do outside or once they leave the high school. And so, like, it's definitely comes with its challenges and a lot of pressure to make sure that you're doing right by students, making sure that you're on your A game with preparing lessons, repertoire that's appropriate for their skill level and their age group, and just overall being prepared for class in general. And it's not, of course, just teaching. Sometimes you have student conflicts, which we, of course, have had a lot of, given the nature of what students are having to deal with, given what the world is. And so, like, we've had a lot of student conflicts, a lot of lack of motivation, decline, of course, in test scores and whatnot. But with orchestra specifically, I have students that, some of them had just started in 6th grade maybe. So they had maybe a full year of 6th grade teaching orchestra or learning orchestra. Then 7th grade was interrupted by the COVID pandemic. And then all of 8th grade was virtual orchestra. And so, like, virtual orchestra.
I was just going to say, how does that...
Oh, man, it's a headache because, of course, they have to be muted. Otherwise it'd be chaos. And so you're playing a part for them, and you're assuming that based on what they're doing in the camera, because I can't hear them, I see whether or not they're hitting their fingers are landing in the right spot.
Yeah.
I can't touch them to
So
adjust
do they
their
like
posture.
lean up and
They play in front of their camera. Like really, they need to back away and like. But like when I do an assessment, I need to see their entire instrument. I need to see their hands as they move, and I listen to whether or not their part comes through in tune. And so, it was.
But you can't do that with 30.
With right, exactly.
Okay.
So like that's when I would have them have to submit a video of them playing whatever part for the piece that we're working on. But like when I'm teaching them as a group, it's just me. Like I'm the only one really playing or making sound in the microphone. I'm watching them play and assuming that they're hopefully sound good and going based off of what I see. But it has definitely been proven to be a challenge. I have done and again, all of the teachers. I think that all of the teachers, no matter what they're
no matter what they're teaching,
it's been a challenge. Like virtual, it's been a lot of high stress, and then of course, acknowledging now that gap in test scores that because of things that they may have missed because things had to be virtual. Like it's a different beast, but we're finding ways to make it work. I'm still building really good relationships with the students that I've started to work with. It takes them a while to warm up to me, figure out who's this new guy. but like I've made some really good relationships. So I love doing it. Orchestra, doing
in school now.
Yes, we're
so you see the same students every day.
I see the same students every day. We're all wearing masks, of course. And I try to, of course, get them to wipe down their chairs and their stand after every class so that, we can try to stay as clean and healthy as we can be. But my classroom has had to have been shut down for a day because a student tested positive in that class yesterday. And so we need to do a deep clean of your room and you need to go somewhere else. But I can't teach my class anywhere else.
Yeah, because it's loud.
Especially with the space in the room and where their instruments are. Their instruments are in the room. They have to get their instruments out of my room that are in their lockers. Yeah. So it's like
it's a whole process.
It's a whole process. Yeah. So like there's a whole procedure that happens if there's a positive case. That student needs to go into quarantine for so long, and the students based on the seating chart have to also go in quarantine if they sat around or came in contact with that student. Ooh. And it's a lot to keep track of.
Listen, COVID has done a number on the entire world, and no matter what industry you work in, COVID has affected you. So we all know that. Sure. Okay, so I want to ask, have you ever ran across a student, and I guess this is probably more speaking when you were working with kind of younger students, have you ever ran across, I would say, like a prodigy or somebody that you felt had like an immense amount of talent that was like way beyond what they should?
Yes, and it's actually interesting. I'll end up having students that are either on the spectrum or whatever else, but when like autism. Okay. So sometimes they'll have autism or sometimes they'll have another social disorder, but they will be whizzes at music. It's crazy. It's very interesting. But like I did have a student who has been excelling greatly. I used to teach him private lessons, but at a certain point, he had to go somewhere else.
What?
Yes. He was working currently with someone from the symphony. I'm pretty sure. I can't remember the name.
Stop it.
But like this kid was a whiz, and he was going on to take
and
lessons.
He played the violin, or
he played the violin.
Okay.
He played the violin, and he went to work with a symphony member who, of course, was charging them about, I think, $100 a lesson.
Oh man.
Because they can be expensive. Yeah. But like that was the skill level that he needed because
really
he's taken off. And I think this kid by now he might be a junior or maybe a senior in high school this year. I actually need to catch up with him to see what's going on. But I want to say he was a freshman when I was working with him last. But then eventually I was like, okay. We need to put you in contact with someone who can really help you out.
Okay, so that brings me back to my point of when you said, there will always be somebody better than you. Like because I don't have any instance in my life to relate that to meeting somebody who, I help, I guess, train, and then they just like, get to a point where, like bro, I can't teach you no more. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of feeling is that, if you can explain
pride,
it?
For sure, pride.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Because at least at one point, like, granted, I didn't get you there. I got you to a certain point.
Right.
But you will be able to say that was my teacher.
So I guess you
like
get
also
that,
just seeing the level of growth, seeing that what I'm doing matters because there are students. You never know what student or who is really going to take to the content that you're teaching, and like could be the next great. And so at least I can have the joy of knowing that I was able to share and play a role in that process for them, for sure.
I had to ask that question.
Oh yes. Nothing but pride.
Because I don't know. I'm a different type of beast myself, so I don't know if I could. Anyway.
Yes.
Anyway, but no, that's okay. So I want to talk a little bit more about the performing artist part of who you are. So okay, so you do these shows with it, or is the shows that you did with Nando, is that like the extent of, like, talk to me a little bit more about, I guess, that part of how that's coming.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I mean that was a process indeed. Like definitely, like first of all getting, because he had it was him. He had 3 background singers. He had a drummer. He sometimes either brought in somebody on the keys or on the guitar, and like then there was me. Yeah. And so getting figuring out the sound that he was going for, because like it's so very unique, like neo soul and hip hop is so very unique, and like there were a lot of nights where weekly we were meeting at his place late, like 8 to sometimes 11.
They work late.
11:30 to like really hash out what we're going for, what sound we're going for the upcoming show. And so just again, he goes by the motto, all work, no favors. And we work. We work, to say the least. He actually has a show coming up, and so I'll give you details about when that is and whatnot. But like, again, it's been an honor to be able to work with such talent and like figuring out what his vision is. Yeah, like him explaining his vision and then being able to bring it to life, being a part of that process. Nothing but joy, because that's what it's all about. That's what music is all about.
It should be.
For sure.
It should be.
Yeah.
It should be. It should be.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's, I guess at this point in your, I guess, career, and not even so much as far as the education, but as far as the performing arts part. Yeah. Like, what has been, I guess, the highlight of what you've done so far, and what's the next milestone for Concert Blacc?
Okay, so well, I guess the biggest milestone was the show that we did at it ended up being at the Foundry. Okay. We did an outdoor concert, which was very nice. They had a stage set up, and like I got to open for him, and actually, of course, play in his session, in his part too.
I was going to ask that. Did you come back and accompany him?
Okay. Like being able to have your music being played for an audience, and I mean people were really into it, and like you can see it on their faces, like they're really tuned in. Yeah. And like my music is not necessarily something that you would rock out to, but like you can see all over their face that everyone is so engaged in like in every note, and so being able to share that with a group of people, like there's nothing like it. And so like that was probably one of the highlights of actually being able to be known as the artist Concert Blacc, or at least have a debut under that name. Yeah. And so it didn't come without its challenges, like figuring out how I wanted to do that, whether it was just going to be me. I had my sound engineer come along. He, put the tracks together, and we had the live keyboardist there too as well. Okay. And like it was it evolved into a really good sound, for sure.
I would imagine.
So yeah, nothing like it.
That's what's up. So, I again, when I invited you on, I wanted to talk about education and all that type of stuff. But now that you've told me so much about Mr. Concert Blacc, I heard a little bit of you practicing earlier, or giving me something. But I'm gonna need literally more. I'm literally gonna need more. I didn't even know you was Concert Blacc, so I feel like I'm behind on my research. Normally, when I bring artists on, I kind of already know about them, but I also take my time to listen to their music, what they have going on. But for you, I got blindsided today, so I have not heard anything.
That's okay.
From Mr. Concert Blacc. So I'm gonna need some music. I'm gonna need some music from you. You
Okay.
can start wherever you want to start, or go wherever you want to go. I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Definitely get you some music.
So excited.
But
So excited.
In terms of, I guess, what's next for me,
Uh-huh.
like, granted, I'm still, of course, teaching, and that's like taking most of my time.
Yeah.
But like, I already did tell my students that there is at least a single in the works that I want to, present, and also potentially have some of my students maybe participate and be a part of the process. So hopefully,
If you need
all
somebody in the
can be-
background, with, you know what I'm saying, just like looking into the camera and grooving to the music, I'm your man.
Okay, understood. I'll keep that in mind.
Please, please.
Okay, right on.
Okay. I'm so excited about this part, y'all.
Make sure we still connected.
So this is yours. Okay. So you wrote all of this. So excited. It is. Listen. But no, sister, it's hard not to engage with it. Not only because of that music, and then seeing it play live. Like it's. Listen. Okay. So I want to hear. Again, you said people don't make requests, but this is please advise. And if please advise, if I'm accommodating, you gonna accommodate as well. I want to hear something classical, just off the top of your head, just literally anything. I'm so amazed. Actually, I'm finna scoot here so I can watch, and I want to hear something classical. I really do. Just whatever you feel, please.
And we'll try to play some Haydn.
You will achieve. You will achieve.
Bear with me.
Okay. fucking amazing. It listen.
Yes.
Okay, so now because I feel like this concert session. So I want to hear like play something that's like, I don't know if this is the right word to use, but something that's like current, like something that we would hear on a violin, but not normally hear a violin play. Like, okay.
See, let's see if you can. If you
so
figure what
fucking
this, if
excited.
you can figure out what this is.
Okay. His eyes on a sparrow. No. I feel like I should know what it is. I feel like I literally feel like I should know what it is, but I fucking don't. I don't. What is it?
Alicia Keys.
Which one?
If I Ain't Got You.
Wait, play it again. Just a little bit. Okay. Okay. Listen.
Yeah.
Listen. Okay. Wait. Before you put it away. Okay, so the first time I heard somebody play violin, they said they was playing some classical piece, and it was like a really high note, and in like the middle of it, that's probably so vague. That's probably so vague.
There are a lot of pieces like that.
And he was like, he tried it like 17 times, like literally while I was sitting there, to hit the high note on the violin, and he finally hit it. I can't remember, cause and when he told me what it was, I said, you know what, I'm never gonna forget the name of that piece. I'd have been old, is been a lot of medicinal products, so I don't know what it was, but I want. Okay, so what is probably like one of the most difficult pieces for you to learn have been?
Oh God!
If you can just pick one.
I can pick it, but I won't. I probably shouldn't play it.
Yes, you should.
I won't.
If you already learned it, you already know how to do
gosh.
it. Okay, well, one that's less difficult but kind of difficult that you have mastered.
Say I mastered a lot of those things.
Okay. Just pick one. Anyone. I don't care who wrote it. I don't care who wrote it. Something.
I will try to play
or you know what? I'm gonna put you on the spot.
Okay.
I want to hear you play the Wedding March. Can you play it in a higher key? How you make it do that? Do it again. Let me see. Listen, I am truly fascinated. Go ahead. Oh, so it's your fingers moving to the different
vibrato. You mean with the vibrato? Yeah.
I don't like how you just did that. Like it was just so simple and off the bat.
I guess
it was. It's amazing.
It was a little.
Okay, so because I want to hear one more song. One more of yours.
One more of mine.
Yes,
okay.
One more of yours.
Okay. Yeah. Can you turn it up just a little bit?
I can't. I definitely can. I definitely can.
Play this one.
Go ahead.
This was actually for.
Again, I want. Go ahead.
This one I actually wrote for my brother. His nickname is Wavy.
Okay.
And so the title is Wavy.
Okay. Wavy, ladies and. Okay. All right. All right. Listen. There are certain guests that I have that get the gist of what I'm trying to do, and then there are guests who completely understand the fucking assignment. Listen to me, Mr. Concert Blacc, you have completely understood the motherfucking assignment. No, seriously, I needed every bit of that. I really did. I really did. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
No,
thank you.
no, thank you. Thank you. I do want to give you this time to, do a little bit of self promotion, let everybody know what you got going on right now, where they can find you, what you got coming up here in the but here in the forthcoming future. I'm so tongue tied after this.
It's fine. So yeah,
go ahead.
Concert Blacc is streaming on all platforms. You can follow me on Instagram at concert_BLACC Black. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, so all platforms. I am doing a show with Bobby Maverick, St. Louis local hip hop artist.
Yes.
That'll be at Pops, I believe, on October 30th. So next Saturday.
It just won't be out by then. But
okay, right.
But I know.
But he knows.
I know.
And then I'll also be performing with Nando, I believe, on November 12th. I believe at Pops as well.
It might be out. November
12th also at Pops. And again, be on the lookout for my upcoming single, To Be Named,
listen,
in the near future.
If ain't nobody else gonna be on the lookout, like I've told other artists before, I am generally a fan of everybody I invite on. I didn't know I was gonna be a fan of Concert Blacc because I didn't know he existed until you came here today, but you have gained a fan. That was absolutely amazing. I got my own concert. Listen, I don't have anything else to say, but what I will say is please continue to like, share, subscribe, and look for Mr. Concert Blacc. I ain't got no words, but I will say until next time, stay tuned.